Good afternoon, everyone. We will be beginning momentarily. We're going to give folks a few more moments to join, a minute or so. So just sit tight for another minute, maybe even less, because we got a lot of content that we want to get through. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to connect with one another and connect with our team here. All right, I think we can get started. Good afternoon and welcome to the Bridging the Gap in Tech panel discussion in hiring. My name is Marco Lindsay and I'm your host and moderator for this discussion. This is the sixth and final panel discussion that the 100 Black men of the Bay Area will be hosting this year. But this event is special to me and to our organization. Right before the pandemic hit, the last panel discussion that we hosted in person highlighted Black women. Today, we're looking to highlight and be allies to the Latinx community and specifically Latinas. You see, this coming Thursday is a Latina Equal Pay Day, which means that it's the day that Latina pay catches up to that of a white man from the previous year. Just to be clear, a Latina woman would have to work all of last year and until October 21st of this year, this Thursday, just to have their pay equate to what a white man made in 2020. So given our discussions are focused on tech, we want to highlight the Silicon Valley chapter of the Latinas in Tech. We had previously arranged for the chapter president, Stephanie Garcia Tomlinson, to tell us about the Latinas in Tech org, but life happens and she's not able to make it today. So what I would like for you to do is to follow the Latinas in Tech organization on LinkedIn and go to their website to find out more about the information, more information about what they're doing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that information in the chat right now. So, but also luckily for us, we have some wonderful Latinas and Afro-Latinas joining us on our panel today. So before you formally meet them, I want to go over a few housekeeping rules in our run of show. I'm going to introduce our panelists. Then I'll ask them a set of preset questions. At about the 40-minute mark, we'll begin to pull questions from you that you put in the chat. We encourage you to put your question in the chat box throughout the discussion. Then at the hour, we'll go into breakout rooms so that you all can network and speak to representatives from these companies. Company reps, if you're from an organization, please make sure that your screen name shows which organization that you are a part of. And we encourage you to answer questions from the career seekers that they put in the chat box. Career seekers, I encourage you to put your LinkedIn profiles in the chat box and connect with one another, as well as with our recruiters and our speakers. Please keep yourself on mute until we go into breakout rooms. And with that, I'll begin our conversation and begin to introduce our esteemed panelists. First up, we have Priscilla Alfaro. Priscilla is a quality engineering manager at Chime with over 15 years of experience in software quality. She currently serves as one of the pillar leads for AfroChime, Chime's Black Employee Resource Group. Prior to being a Chimer, she worked in other startups and mid-sized companies in the Bay Area, Panama, and Costa Rica, where she is originally from. Priscilla is passionate about building communities and creating meaningful relationships. Outside of work, she's building a social fitness platform to bring together her love for fitness, community, and technology. We're happy to have you, Priscilla. As a corporate social responsibility professional, working as a diversity, equity, inclusion, and social impact practitioner, Tanya Macedo has 6 years of experience partnering with businesses and organizations to build equitable, sustainable, and inclusive community spaces, practices, and policies for employees and members of the community. She currently works as the DEI and social impact manager at Zwift, a cycling and running gaming company, where she has supported a variety of diversity initiatives, including diversity recruiting, employee resource groups, CRGs, anti-racism workshops, and launching a robust cultural events calendar. As a first-generation Chicana Latina, Tanya has been a lifelong social justice activist and a community organizer, passionate about uplifting and underserved communities. She has served a variety of organizations, including the San Francisco Latino Task Force, and most recently was on the board of the Homeless Children's Network. Tanya recently moved to Portland, Oregon, and enjoys traveling, hiking with her dogs, and cooking delicious Mexican food. Great to have you, Tanya. Next up, we have Claudia Haddad. Claudia is an associate product manager at Coinbase on the advanced trading team. She graduated from Penn in 2020 with a major in cognitive science and consumer psychology. Prior to Coinbase, she was a software engineer at Facebook on the critical authoritative resources team and built products for COVID-19, Juneteenth, and Earth Day. She's passionate about empowering diverse talent in tech and making product roles more accessible. Great to have you, Claudia. Next up, we have Quincy Mingo. Quincy is a program manager for strategic partnerships within the Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging organization at LinkedIn. He is responsible for driving cross-functional partnerships between company lines of business and external DIB partners. His priorities is to ensure a bi-directional benefit out of the synergies between internal and external stakeholders. Through his efforts, he supports the daily work of inclusion recruiting and employee resource groups, ERGs. Before joining LinkedIn, Quincy served in a variety of roles from military service to higher education. In his former role at Stanford University, he focused on creating change through campus-wide initiatives, supporting first-generation students, designing and facilitating a course on leadership and interpersonal learning, and collaborating with faculty for community building events. In addition, he completed 6 years in the U.S. National Guard, serving as a military police officer. He served his country performing joint operations with national responders for rescue and natural disaster missions. Quincy holds a Bachelor's of Art in Sociology, as well as Master's of Education in Counseling. Great to have you, Quincy. Last but definitely not least is Brian Bonson. Brian is currently working in the diagnostic data processing team at Invitae, a medical-grade genetic testing tech company. Prior to joining Invitae, Brian worked in an HR capacity, and some of the areas he was always passionate in are data, tech, education, and health. Early on, Brian received a BS from St. John's University, where he concentrated in business management and landed his first role in a law firm, but eventually found his way in tech and never looked back. One of Brian's aspirations early on in his career was to not only land it into tech, but most importantly, an inclusive driven company above all else. Brian is looking to find a way to combine his earlier mentioned passions to make a meaningful impact in his and others' lives, which is what keeps him motivated even during the tough times. While previously residing in San Francisco, Brian is initially from and has since moved back to his hometown of New York, where he continues to enjoy cycling and hiking when the weather permits. So glad to have you all. And what I'd like to do is just figure out and have a conversation. And Tanya, I'll start with you, but tell us, how did you get into tech?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I've only really been in tech 7 months in my current role as a diversity, inclusion, and social impact manager at Swift. For those of you that haven't heard of Swift, we are a gaming company that focuses on cycling and running. So you could do it indoors, Brian, when the weather's not great. I had a really interesting trajectory. I first started in the nonprofit sector. So I did a lot of fundraising and marketing and, managed social impact programs. And then I moved into the beauty industry. I was working on their social impact work, so corporate social responsibility, and figuring out how can our company have an impact on communities and how do we make a difference? How do we engage our employees in volunteering? And I basically realized, okay, I can take all of these skills that I have learned in marketing and communications and PR, in fundraising, and as long as I can clearly articulate these on my resume and in my job interview, then I can transition into this tech space. And I didn't have previous experience. And so now I'm here again doing diversity, inclusion, and social impact at Swift.
Thank you, Tanya. Priscilla?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. It was that my name? Yeah, awesome. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Priscilla, and I like to think that I started getting involved in tech actually in elementary school, where computers was something really new, really exciting. So they had this little program that had a turtle in the middle of the screen, and you had to give instructions for the turtle to do things. So for me, it was like a game. Years later, I realized that was a way of programming. But at the moment, I didn't know. I just enjoy working with the computers. So when it was time for my quinceañera, I asked for a computer instead of a party, which, yeah, weird. But yeah, I started having that fascination with computers. And when it was time for me to go to college, I decided to go for computer science. I really didn't know what it was, so I just knew it had computers in the title, and it was really hard. Actually, my first semester was really, really challenging, but eventually I got, used to it. I understood, and I actually like it a lot. So I started my career as a developer, and really soon after, I transitioned into quality of software, and yeah, that was my involvement in tech.
Thank you. How about you, Claudia?
Yeah, I would say I got into tech at the end of high school. So I took a new course back then, which called AP Computer Science Principles, which is a bit more of holistic, more about how tech and society like go together versus just like pure like coding and math. So yeah, that sort of piqued my interest. Then I got admitted to a computer science summer camp hosted by Google in Boston. Highly recommend if you know any current high school seniors. And yeah, I had a really good time there. They taught us JavaScript, Python, and like web development. So going into college, I was like super energized about CS, but I did find it extremely challenging. Like Priscilla mentioned, it's definitely not an easy major, an easy course of study. So I didn't end up majoring in computer science, but I did really enjoy programming and like building projects from scratch. So I did intern in software engineering my freshman summer and like really loved it. So I think that internship and like practical experience really kept me in tech, but academically it wasn't as much of a fit for me. But I think like it was a good learning experience that like you can work in tech without like taking all these computer science classes or like getting A's. Like you can, there's a space for everyone and you don't have to like be perfect to like get a spot in tech for sure.
Thank you. How about you, Quincy?
Hi, everybody. So I would say my involvement in tech was sparked by just me wanting to change the work that I was doing. I was working in higher education, serving the student population and really, impacting the experience of a student on campus. I wanted to think beyond that. I wanted to have a larger impact, and I was living in Silicon Valley at the time. And so by way of just being in that place, being exposed, I was like, hey, tech's a place where I can go. I can utilize my skill sets. I can make an impact that's larger than what I'm doing right now. And so it was really by the exposure of being in Silicon Valley and my network being in tech. A lot of my friends were already at the Googles, were already at the startups, Netflix. And so I was like, what are you doing? What do you do? And so just doing more research and having a better understanding of what tech was and the opportunity in tech piqued my interest, and I became more intrigued around, honestly, the money, the autonomy, the roles. And so from there, I was like, hey, it meets the needs and where I am in life. And so I took the leap into tech, and then here I am, still here at LinkedIn.
Nice. Brian, tell us your story.
Yeah, so for me, I've always loved tech. So as you mentioned earlier, I've worked in a law firm. I was in a more of a corporate environment, and then I knew early on that I wanted to get into tech. And then my way at first, I thought the way to get into tech was I have to be a software engineer. I have to like learn how to code. So I remember actually, I was looking at boot camps. I was like, okay, this is the way for me to get into tech. I really want to get into this space, and this seems like the way to get into it. So eventually, I was going to networking events, and then I was speaking to someone who was giving me suggestions on some boot camps. And then when I went on the page, actually, I ended up just, checked it out, looked at the careers, and I saw that they had other roles outside of, software engineer. And then I saw, oh, wait, I think I can do this role. And at that time I was in a HR capacity. So so eventually I applied, got the call, went through the interviews, and I got it. I also, so what I'm trying to say pretty much is networking for me is what's been working. Even with my current role in Invitae, I actually attended this event last year, and then pretty much I met someone in the company. I eventually followed up, and then they were able to get my name to the talent team, and then from there I was able to land some interviews and get a role here. So for me, the answer is all about networking. That's where I want to go with it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You see that? You can get a job at this event. We have someone who did it, and so we want to encourage you to network, meet these folks. You have some people, they're on this call to hire you, so make sure that you're reaching out and making those connections. Given what I led with was 100 Black men. We want to highlight the Latinx experience. Can you tell us? And I'll throw this out there to anyone. What is it like to be Black or brown in tech? We know that tech is predominantly white, right? Let's just call it what it is. And so tell us about your experience of being in tech and being a person of color. Just unmute yourself.
I can go.
Go for it.
Yeah, I can go first. So for me, it felt isolating at times. Like earlier in my career, I want to say it felt like in order to fit in, like I had to conform myself. And due to that, I felt like I wasn't being my authentic self. Like I was losing my identity, because again, just like, we all want to fit in, in your environment. So it's just like trying to keep certain parts of myself like private, because maybe I feel like others wouldn't relate, and then trying to like things that others would like. So for example, again, conforming, right? Like I don't like beer, right? But I was like, let me try to like beer and play, and play some ping pong, right? Because that was like the tech thing to do. I think, yeah. So I think, so to that point, I guess what I'm trying to say is like working somewhere like 7 to 8 hours a day for 5 days and not like able to be 100% yourself could be traumatizing. So I really want to just say, like, again, for the isolating point of it is like, it just felt, again, being isolated and feeling isolating was like something that I really wanted to like get out of. And I want to plug in like our ERG, for example, at my current company, because that allowed me to sort of like find out, oh, there is actually a group where I can relate to and I can speak to and I can talk about things. At a previous company, again, like just to bring it up, like even like something like TV shows. I love Game of Thrones as much as the next person, right? And then like everyone was talking about it, and that was like, but when it came to like maybe another show, like, so for example, I was like, does anybody watch Insecure? And it was like no one knew what that was, or no one knew I was talking about. So again, to drive on the point, just like for me, it felt isolating. It felt like I wasn't being my authentic self, and it felt lonely.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Brian said. I think that there's moments in time when it can feel really, really lonely. I mean, as a Latina too, and I know that you all, 100 Black Men, are partnered with Latinas in Tech, but they have like really phenomenal stats. One of them is that only 1.5% of employees are Latinas in tech. And we make up like 19 or 20% of the US population, which is insane. Like that alone just shows you that there are so many barriers to access for Latinas to get into the tech space. And so often you are one of the only Latinas in a meeting at the table, right? And you are sort of, feeling like you're representing your community. But I think that over the years, there has been a lot of changes that have been done, right? So tech companies are investing more and more into Black and brown employees, into getting more diverse candidates in the doors. And so that's really, really exciting to see. I think that, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And I probably am not going to be happy until I see more BIPOC leaders in and the executive level, as well as like on the boards of companies.
Yeah, I would like to offer actually a different perspective from my experience. As I started my career in Costa Rica, being Black or brown was not uncommon or wasn't something that I noticed any difference, right? But at that time, being a woman in tech was a big difference. So when I was in class or at jobs, I was seeing the other women and recognizing them. And, we started working together, working in projects, pairing for, our assignments and studies. So I think it's really similar when I moved to the United States, and I was maybe the only one or one of the few Black or brown people in the company. When someone else came, I started recognizing that on them, like, oh yeah, we are the same here. And something that was really interesting for me is that they started recognizing me as a Black person. And just to give some context, in Costa Rica, I wasn't seen as a Black person because I'm mixed and have light skin. So it was a morena or, a mulata, but not a Black person. So being embraced as a Black person, that side of me that maybe wasn't recognized was really, really cool for me. I started embracing the whole me and kind of celebrating my Blackness. So actually, it was cool to start forming those groups, to start forming those connections. And that is something that I'm trying to do when I see another Black or brown folk, in the company. Make sure that they are seen and that they feel that they are part of it, that they belong here as well. So yeah, that's my experience.
And I definitely want to say I love all the comments on it. It resonates with me. I think for me, Marco, when you asked the question, the thoughts that came up were like blessed, gratifying, selfless, and taxing. And I say that because particularly I work in the DIB space. And so working on a diversity, inclusion, belonging team, we're very diverse. Like I'm blessed to be on a team where the minority is the white audience. And so I'm like, okay, this feels comfortable. My manager is Black. And so I was allowed to have that. And so being able to, know that it's far and few between some people's experience of being a Black male in tech, I didn't take that for granted. And so I work closely with ERGs, and the work that I do is focused on supporting the DIBS efforts of the company. And so oftentimes I do hear the experiences of some of our colleagues of color who are talking about, my manager doesn't support me. They don't care about my professional trajectory. How do I actually help my manager become aware of, cultural agility? And so I come across those experiences all the time with some of my colleagues and peers. And so I do want to say in certain spaces, as I've been blessed with to be able to be not a minority, it feels comfortable. Not comfortable to where I'm stagnant, but comfortable to where I can be my authentic self on my team. But I also understand the experiences of those outside of that space on various teams who they are the only one trying to do the work. So, yeah.
Yeah, plus one to what everyone just said before me. I think it's definitely challenging to find people in your company or just in tech that like resonate with your experiences and your background. So I think like finding mentors outside the company becomes even more important because there's just like a higher likelihood you can find them. But yeah, I think especially for me, I've been noticing like there's like very few women in leadership, let alone like Latinx women in leadership. So I think that's like hard to grapple with. But I think like there's definitely an effort in tech to make that better for everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I saw a note in the chat about employee resource groups, and I know we have some employee resource group leaders here. And so, can you all tell us how are ERGs, employee resource groups, changing the landscape of tech within your respective organizations? Priscilla, you were quoted, so let's
I was gonna say, I'm gonna start with this one. Yeah, I think ERGs are making a lot of changes within organizations. And I have been really fortunate to actually start being involved in ERGs formations in the beginning at Chime, maybe a couple of years ago. So we started kind of a way to connect with each other, to build community, and to start addressing some of the issues that we were seeing. But I'm so glad that it has been way much more than that. During the last couple of years, we have been having major events like the Black Lives Matter and Stop Asian Hate movement. And these groups have been a big support for the particular communities. Besides that, have been a place for educating others in like cultural difference or traditions, and even important concepts like being an anti-racist versus a non-racist. So I think they are doing a lot of changes, even with having more inclusive language and products within the companies, and being advocates for more inclusive and diverse hiring practices. So these are just some of the examples of the impact I have seen with the ERGs at Chime in these couple of years. So super, super excited to see everything that they are going to be doing, not just at Chime, but within other organizations as well.
And I would add, I think ERGs are pivotal in making change within companies. Making change within companies and externally. I know for us, ERGs, are really intertwined into the makeup of the company, because the ERG leaders actually meet with our CEO to inform strategy, to inform retention efforts, because we understand that our ERG leaders are tied into those member bases, those audiences where they can better speak for the members in a way that really gives a broad stroke of how to support them. If Black males have a horrible attrition, high attrition at the company, how can we support them? How can we strategize around that? And I've seen the efforts go all the way to the CEO, which is helpful. We also have our ERG members sit in on our diversity report of speaking the numbers. Where do we stand with women in leadership roles? Where do we stand with women in tech roles? So they can actually know what the data says, so we can also speak into that strategy from a DIBS perspective. And I think it's also important for ERGs to have a community play. Like for us, our ERGs are tied into the external community. So they connect with the Latinas in tech, the LGBTQ plus community, to create that network and to create those retention efforts of our audience and members to be able to attend their events, attend their webinars, to create that community for them to know that there's professional development, there's a community outside of your own employee base at the company. And so I think there's a number of ways that ERGs are able to tap into that strategy, that retention, that community play for it to really be beneficial to the company at large.
Yeah. And I think I have a bit of a different perspective, just because Swift is a startup, and we're growing rather quickly. And actually, we just launched 3 employee resource groups. We launched a BIPOC one, a women's ERG, and then an LGBTQIA plus ERG. And we're a team of 2. Myself and my boss lead diversity, inclusion, and social impact for the entire company. We have an office in the UK, Rio, and the US, right? And so for us, it's about like having ambassadors throughout the entire company help move forward our D&I work, right? And I always like to say, D&I is everyone's job. It doesn't just start and end within the D&I department. It's about changing minds, and it's about changing hearts. And 2 people aren't going to do that, right? It has to be across every single department in the company. And so for us, it's really built this like momentum and this like culture that values diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it's just been really cool to see. And it also offers, like, they're doing the work of the work, right? There are folks who are helping us in diversity recruitment. There are folks that are helping us with like our marketing efforts, like as like a consultancy group. And so it's just been really cool to see how that in just a short amount of time has really shifted the way that the company is thinking.
Yeah, I know at Coinbase, we recently launched an ERG from Latinx employees. And so that was like within the past month, which is exciting. And I think for me, it was cool to see that, because a lot of the people I work with every day, like I had no idea they were Latinx, or like didn't know it was like such a big part of their identity. But then in that group, we had like video calls together, and it was like just cool to see people like outside like a work meeting and just see like was mentioned before, like their authentic self. So yeah, I think it's really special, and it's really like helpful to be a part of those. Like,
Yeah, I find ERG super important. I think it allows people to find a space where you can sort of get together. You can sort of, you can find your tribe, and you can relate on things. But also to, I think it was Quincy's point, it pushes the status quo. So, as an example, in my company, again, we're a genetic testing company, so we receive and order forms that patients have to fill out, right? And you get the typical, we all know about name, date of birth, address, sex, et cetera, right? So one of the things that our ERGs pushed for was to change the sex to sex assigned at birth, as well as the gender, having it in alphabetical order. So in this case, female would be first, rather than the instilled belief that male should be on top of female for the gender arrangement, right? And these may seem like small changes, but they actually are very meaningful, not only to the patients and clients, but just for the employees as well.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Here's another question. We got a lot of folks on this call looking for careers in tech. You all have careers in tech. So how would you advise a career seeker to get a new role in tech, in general, or in your respective companies?
Sure, I can start. I would say social capital and networking is super important, right? If you're attending this event, you're on the right track, right? But just like there's an 100 Black Men network, there are so many other amazing networks out there. So go and meet people and participate in these educational opportunities, and these opportunities that are tied to and are working with tech companies that, are offering jobs. We also at Swift started working with these two platforms called Ripple Match and Jobwell, which basically connect young professionals to internship and career opportunities. And I think that they're phenomenal, right? Because they focus on supporting BIPOC professionals. And then lastly, I would say LinkedIn is a fabulous tool. And I love that this event started with hey, everybody, put your LinkedIn profile in the chat, because even at the stage of where I'm at, I reach out to a bunch of D&I professionals and I say hey, what are you doing? What's new? What are the trends in this space? And that's how I continue to learn. And then guess what? I see all the amazing projects because I follow them that they're working on. And then I get, really creative about what we can be doing differently at Swift. If there's someone that has a job that you want at a company that you want, reach out to them. People love to share their journeys. They love to share their stories and how they got to where they're at. And then ask them what they love about their job and what they don't like. Because sometimes you'll find out, hey, that's actually not what I want to do. And you'll realize you want to get a little bit more specific, or that there's another role that you didn't think of that might match your skill set better.
I love that, Tanya. I really do. I think networking, Brian said it in the very beginning, networking is the biggest piece. And LinkedIn is that place where you can just honestly, low key creep on people's profiles, see what they do, see what their job is, so you can better understand if you would have interest. People write out their job description on their profiles often, or what their outputs are. So definitely go look at that. And as somebody who pivoted into tech, I would definitely say better understand how do your skill sets transfer into tech. The thing about tech is there will be one job and it's said 10 different ways across different companies. And so you need to be clear of what are those, look at various job descriptions so you can pull out how does Facebook or how does Coinbase articulate this particular role, so I know what to look for, or I know what to actually put in my resume when I'm submitting to these companies. I think that's important because you need to understand what you're even looking for. You can really get into the tech space and be lost into of like, I don't even know what I'm looking for because there's so many different roles. So I definitely say know what your transferable skills are and what jobs are you looking for. And that networking piece is key. And I think, Tanya, you spoke to this about following some of the people that are doing the work that you have interest in. Go onto the platform and be a contributing thought leader. If you're on someone's post and you're commenting as like a contributing thought leader, you're going to be looked at as somebody, okay, people are on LinkedIn actually looking at those comments to see who can be a great candidate, or searching, recruiters are going to search on your profile to say, oh, I see Marco speaking about this. Let me see what he currently does. He may be interested in this role. So you have to think about that of like, LinkedIn is going to be a platform for you to be able to network, be a thought contributor, post your own information, and just be on there and find the right people to be able to find the next opportunity.
Yeah, I think there's two steps to like breaking into tech. The first is like identifying which roles and which companies are a good fit for you. Then the second one, which may be harder, easier depending, is like actually landing the role. I'm sure everyone knows like interviews are super brutal, but I think if you do the first part correctly, which is like identifying which role is a good fit for your skill set and your experiences, the second part becomes much easier. Another point is companies are so different. Like for me, I think like a mid-sized company is best for me, but that really depends on the person, and it takes a few companies to figure that out. Also, industry is a big factor. Like for instance, if you studied biology but want to break into tech, like maybe a biotech company is a good fit. So things like that. Just really think about like your interests, like what excites you, and then like find tech companies that sort of follow that. I think that makes interviewing so much easier because you have a story and like a reason for why you want to work there versus just like a generic like tech company. But yeah, and then in terms of landing the role, I think like doing practice interviews is the most critical thing. And that's how you stand out and just sound very polished and like, you know why you want to work there. So yeah, definitely doing mock interviews with people in the role you want is like a really good way to like accelerate your preparation.
Yeah, I would second that about the transferable skills and looking for things that you're passionate about. But if you're looking to do a complete transition and, like go into something that is a complete different set of skills, I would say, don't do it alone. Find a community, a group, like someone that keeps you accountable, that gives you guidance and support, because it can get challenged. It can, you can get stuck in one part and you will need someone to push you to continue. The other thing that I notice sometimes is like people are afraid to ask questions, like like that fear of like sounding silly, or this is a silly question, or not knowing enough. And that's a big mistake. Like ask the questions. Sometimes even just talking about the problem you're having is going to lead you to the solution of that problem, or might give you a different perspective. So yeah, find your people and ask questions.
Yeah, for me, +1 to what everyone said, specifically like the transferable skills. Like it's super important that you identify like your strengths and the unique perspective that you can bring to the company. And I think a lot of times we undersell ourselves in terms of like what skills we do have. Like, for example, you may be, let's say you work in retail, right? You may be able to get into a tech company using your skills in customer service and sales and find a role that fits that. Or maybe you're a teacher. You can do learning and development. The point being is just to really take a deep dive and understand yourself and like, what did you enjoy in your past roles, and how you can use that to sort of be that stepping stone to get into tech.
And Marco, if I could add one more thing, I think it was kind of touched on. I know we're talking about how to get into tech and network, but if you're looking for the company, if you have your eyes set on like Disney, Coinbase, no matter what the company is, do extensive research, because a lot of companies are doing programs where you can come from a whole different industry and they'll train you up. You don't need the technical skills. As long as you're coachable and you're willing to actually put in the work, you could become an intern and then go into part-time and then going to the next level. Like, you have to be able to understand what these companies are offering for you to get into the door. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
And +1 to Quincy, like totally agree with you. And like to that point would be like if there's a specific company you have in mind. Like I personally know someone who, the way they got into the company was they went into their website and found a typo and they emailed them. And then because of that, they reached out to them and said, hey, do you want to like work for us? Like, so like, if you can do something like that, like you like look at the company, do your research, find a typo on their website, and maybe, you know, they might want to interview you.
There is a career called software testing for that, and that's a whole new career that you can do too.
Add value. I think that's another way to put it. I think we're blessed to have this panel. Some really exciting folks, right? And it's sharing some authentic experiences and information. Given that, and Tanya, I'll start with you on this one, and then everyone else you can popcorn it. But what's your favorite part of your job?
I think my favorite part of my job is, well, I know that my favorite part of my job is feeling like I'm making an impact, right? I work in diversity, equity, and social impact. So that means that, you know, I'm making space for BIPOC professionals to come in to work at Swift. We're creating welcoming and safe places for them. And then the social impact piece means that, you know, I'm connecting Swift with nonprofit organizations on the ground that are not only supporting underserved and BIPOC communities, but are making basically a really big impact in communities in general. And so I get to do that from 9 to 5. That's my 9 to 5 job, right? And that's pretty cool. I would say that my other favorite part of my job is that I work at a startup, and the startup space might not be for everybody, but the reason why I like it is because it's creative, it's really innovative, and you have so much opportunity to grow. Like I said before, we're a team of 2, right? So if you go to bigger companies and there's like a D&I department, there's probably like 10 or 20 people. Like, I'm getting so much experience because I'm working on diversity recruitment. I'm working on marketing. I'm working on supporting the Inclusion Council and the employee resource groups. And, you know, the list goes on, right? The experiences, the trainings, et cetera. And so I feel like, you know, there's so much opportunity for me to grow and continue to make an impact within the company.
Yeah, for me, there are a couple of things that I really like about my job. One is related to my specific career in software quality. And is that I get to be involved in the whole life cycle of a product, since it is the product requirements and design to all the way to development and and testing. And I get to represent the user in all those stages of the product. Not only for the product to be functional and don't have issues, but to actually solve the needs that they have and in the best way possible. And the other part, similar to Tanya, working at Chime that has a mission of actually helping people to have better financial lives. I feel that I have a purpose, I have impact in people's real life. And that has been a big change of how I show up at work. Actually, I was talking with my dad this last weekend, and he was like, "What's your company that?" Right after like 3 years in this company, he was just asking about that. But I was feeling so much pride in telling him all the things that we do, the people that we serve. And yeah, I show up completely different at work for that mission.
Yeah, I think for me, I really enjoy working at Coinbase because every day is so different. I'm not sure if anyone's like really into crypto here, but crypto is just like absurd, and like every day is like a new technology, a new coin coming out. NFTs are another ball game, but yeah, it's just really exciting in terms of the industry, excuse me. And then in terms of being like a product manager, I get to like talk to a lot of different people every day, like UX researchers, designers, data scientists, engineers, lawyers, et cetera. So just like being able to get a glimpse of like different jobs and like different roles each day is really cool. Yeah, I think if you're bored easily, product is a great fit. And you get to like develop skills in a bunch of different areas, which is really fulfilling as well.
So for me, it's probably less role specific and more about, for me, the team structure and dynamic. Like, I really appreciate the autonomy and trust given. I'm afforded lots of flexibility. Our team is diverse, and Yeah, and there's just a sense of belonging, and again, I attribute that to our ERG. And then lastly, to what I think was Tanya that said it, like this sense of purpose, I think it's really important for me, at least, to be at a company where like you're passionate about the impact that's being made with the company. So.
And I want to just drive home that purposeful work. I decided to get into a role where it was going to fulfill me. And so in my particular role, I create partnerships with external organizations like the 100 Black Men, the Latinas in Tech, to work with internal organizations or business units to benefit. And so I can diversify our LinkedIn learning catalog because I know 100 Black Men has professionals that can fit the bill, or Latinas in Tech have professionals that can fit the bill. And so for me, it's being able to bring those resources to our external organizations and diverse segments that can really use it and who have traditionally not been the dominant narrative, to be able to have access to this information or resources or people to be able to take their audience and members to the next level. And so for me, it's really being able to do work that is bigger than me and work that is going to benefit a number of people that normally if they didn't have access to, or the connections, they wouldn't know. You just don't know what you don't know. And so me being in a position of privilege and power to be able to disseminate that information and make those connections, it just allows me to do work that I care about. And so for me, that's really why I do the work and what matters to me in tech.
Thank you all. Good stuff. I think probably encourage some folks to want to apply to respective organizations. So recruiters, be ready for those breakout rooms. Here's another question on that. And of course, I'm not necessarily talking about the skill itself, right? I'm gonna preface it with this, but what type of person are your respective organizations looking for in a new hire, right? What if I want to come work for your respective company, what type of mentality, attitude, what would I need to bring to the table in order to be a viable candidate?
I can start actually going back to that mission of Chime. Someone who can really understand that mission, that understand the community or the population that we are serving, and the impact of our products. I think it is key for landing a job at Chime. And like you said, besides the particular qualifications or requirements for the team that you are applying to, I think another important thing is that Chime is growing really fast and changing really fast. So your ability to learn and adapt quickly and have growth mindset, I think will serve you really, really well at Chime.
Yeah, I think at Coinbase, the values that stand out the most to me are clear communication, I forget the exact, efficient execution, and positive energy. So I feel like everyone is just really excited to be there. And then there's a big emphasis on like getting things done and taking responsibility. So I think people who people that are just like energetic and like want to get shit done, like I think Coinbase is a really good fit. And like I said before, like things are always changing. So like just being able to keep up with kind of like the speed at which things move. But I think it's really exciting and like no day is boring. Yeah, get shit done. It's a good mindset to have. But yeah, I really enjoy working there. I've surpassed my expectations.
Yeah. For us, we are moving away from finding people that are like culture fits. We're now using the term culture add because I feel like that's definitely more inclusive, right? But we are being more mindful about looking in and saying, okay, what gaps do we have as a company and how do we fill those gaps? How do we bring in like the experience and skills that we currently don't have, right? Because if you hire for culture fit, it's like the same people, the same thoughts, the same ideas, the people that look the same as each other, right? And that's not providing any diversity of thought. So, and I like that we're moving in that direction. I would also say that, degrees don't always matter, right? Like my MBA is in sustainable management. I went to school for undergrad and I studied environmental studies and biology. So I was really focused in like sustainability and like corporate social responsibility, right? And now I'm in diversity, inclusion, and social impact. And so I also feel like we hire for potential and not necessarily degree. Like if you can, again, clearly articulate on your resume and in your job interview why you're the right candidate for this job and how you can add value to the company. I feel like that's really important.
I think, unequivocally, I think all actually are welcome at Invitae. As long as you're aligned with our cultural tenets, sense of urgency, team over self, radically honest communications, transparency, and freedom with accountability. As long as you're aligned with those, we are all arms. Like we are happy to look into you and see how you can be a great fit for the role. It's a change of thinking, at least for me, because I've come from, again, former companies where one of the cultural tenets that I really resonate with, for example, is like team over self, right? Like, and it's true. Like usually in previous companies, it's like in order for you to win, someone has to lose. And it can create like this sort of like race to the top, trying to undercut the person next to you, right? And we really at Invitae, we really value like the team. We're not looking for this one know-it-all person who's like arrogant and toxic. And then lastly, I would say like there's this assumption, because we're a genetics tech company, that you have to have like some type of like science background. No, again, all are welcome. We're happy to have you join the team as long as you are aligned with our culture tenets.
I honestly, I would say, one of our themes is act like an owner. And so for us, it's really about just be your true self, be able to have integrity, trust, to collaborate, get your work done. And I can be very honest, I'm not gonna lie. I have not come across a mean or evil person at LinkedIn. I don't know. I think we really hire individuals who, really come to their work with a positive mindset. We have people who have humor, because the work that we're doing is purposeful. Like the vision of LinkedIn is, it's like create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. So you need to be able to have passion behind your work if you're trying to change that for the entire world. And so being driven by that vision of a company, we want individuals who, I think Claudia said it earlier, get shit done. Like we want people who are going to act like an owner and just do things that are going to be positive for the world. And so I would say that when articulating what are we looking for in future employees.
Thank you all. Thank you. I'm gonna ask you one question, then I'll read one of the questions from the audience. But for this question, maybe two, maybe three of you, if you have an answer for it, I'd love to hear it. But as people of color in tech, how have allies, mentors, sponsors played a role in your career trajectory? And then if you've had that, how did you make those connections? How did you make those connections and get those allies?
Yeah, as much as I'd like to believe I did it myself, that's far from the truth. For me, it was about finding people and that would be like proactive and for you. Again, like to plug this very event where I was last year as an attendee, I found someone through the company who was able to open a door for me. And so for me, like, I think when people think of like mentorship per se, it's like this person intimately, and you have these like maybe weekly or monthly meetings or whatever. To me, I see mentors as like all walks of life. Like mentors aren't perfect. Like I pick certain attributes that maybe someone has, and then like how I can like mimic it. I've had past managers where I saw them as a mentor, and then figure out like ways I can learn from their style. I've have family members and friends and colleagues. So the point I'm trying to make is like, for me, it's really about finding certain things that you admire. And again, no one's perfect, because if you look at the person as a whole, you're going to be disappointed. And just finding like those pieces that you admire and that you want to like emulate. That's sort of how I look at mentorship and how I've like been doing it. So I don't like go out and actually say, hey, can you be my mentor? It's more like just learning about the things that are important to me from that person where I can.
Yeah, really similar to Brian. I think starting recognizing that in all the relationships that you have. For me, I started seeing that or building those connections since college, like from my professor that referred me to my internship and then actually hired me in his company, to the classmate that eventually was my manager. And when he left the company, he, recommended me to take that role. So it's in all those connections. And even at Chime, I recently did a transition from IC to a manager role. And it was so many people that helped me along the way in giving me advice or coaching me in some particular skills, or actually providing me the opportunities to practice and develop those skills within the company. What I would say about that is that sometimes you need to know what you want, and being able to share that or communicate that with people so people can help you in a better way. So they have to speak up.
Yeah, for me, it was a really great boss that I had, a previous boss. I'm first generation Latina. My parents didn't graduate from college. I'm the first in my family. So it was sort of like, how do I blaze this trail? And the corporate setting and the tech space are so white, right? So it's like, what are the do's and don'ts? I'm not really sure, but Carrie, who was my previous boss, she was just an amazing sponsor. I mean, she gave me an opportunity and saw potential in me, even when I didn't quite meet all of the job requirements, right? Allowed me to fail and make mistakes and was really patient about it. I learned through trial and error and through observing her. And, she's a cisgendered white female, and that is like a true ally right there, right? I think that, yes, it helps knowing people of color within this space, but white allies are also really, really important because they make up a majority of, the spaces within the tech space, let's be honest. So if you can find, a boss like that, then great. If you can't, I would say, there are so many communities of practices and these networks where you can find leaders who are willing to mentor you or to sponsor you.
Thank you. We're at the hour. I'm so sorry. We did have one question, but we probably won't get to it. We're going to go into breakout rooms, but I realize that some people may have to leave. So I just want to make sure that, I give my thank yous. Don't log off. Do not log off. Do not log off. But, I want to thank the San Francisco chapter of National Black MBA, Maisha Robertson, helping us put this together. They're recruiting. So if you're don't have your MBA, you can still join. Maisha can put the link in the chat she did earlier. I want to thank our corporate partners, Chime, Coinbase, and Vitae, with LinkedIn for making this event happen. I also want to thank our 5 amazing, phenomenal panelists, Tanya, Brian, Priscilla, Claudia, Quincy. They share so much of themselves and their insights and experiences that they help make this event happen. I hope you're taking notes, because I was. I'm moderating, but I'm taking notes because this is good stuff. It's like network, be a thought contributor. On LinkedIn, identify roles that are a good fit for your skills and experiences. Learn, adapt, have a growth mindset, positive energy. Mentor doesn't have to be somebody that you know. It's some good stuff here that can really help your career trajectory. So I hope you're paying attention, because we want you to land a role. That's why we do this, because we want to help as many people as possible get as many productive and financially sustainable roles in tech as possible. And so with that, we're going to go into breakout rooms. And at this time, you're going to have an opportunity to connect with these panelists and in a small group setting, connect with the recruiters from their organization. You can talk about your story, talk about the role that you're interested in, and ask them some questions. And so Maisha Robertson from the National Black MBA Association is going to send us to these breakout rooms. But again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone being here. We're going to stay in the breakout rooms till about 27, 28 minutes.